Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. An analyst in Trinidad and Tobago's local government elections says results of the low turnout show both parties failed. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 17th August 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Dr. Shane Mohammed, a political analyst, in reviewing the results of Monday's election, knocked both leaders of the country's major political parties, saying they failed to attract young voters, and contrary to what they both said, they both failed at the polls. Urvashitawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
Despite the postulations of both major political parties that they won at Monday's local government polls, if you ask political analyst Dr. Shane Mohammed, both the PNM and the UNC failed.
Nobody won. They both lost. The people of Trinidad and Tobago also lost because all they just did is prove to everybody, including the political scientists, that you are exactly alike. You're both now, one it happens to be a populist, right, which is Kamala Persad-Bissessar. One is transactional. But even in Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's populism and her quest to be a popular leader, she's also very transactional. So she's also mediocre. The Prime Minister is also mediocre.
Dr. Mohammed describes the PNM leader Dr. Keith Rowley's call on election night as disingenuous.
When you want to talk about let's move forward and build a nation, change the tone of your voice, change your attitude, change your look, change your perspective, change your approach, change your communication skills. You don't come and talk down to people for 8 years and then here in your midterm, you are giving a concession speech that is like a spin concession speech.
He says the UNC is no better and could not have made significant inroads without their unity pacts with the NTA and Jack Warner's ILP.
The UNC needs to understand that you could package steel corncles in a new corncles package, but it's the same steelness when you open the new package, right? And they're in a stalemate. That's what they're in. And while they were able to make inroads, they're making inroads in a low voter turnout, right? And they're making inroads with the assistance of Jack Warner and Gary Griffith. So Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and the UNC didn't do this on their own. And for them to be able to make the overtures that they did in San Fernando, Mr. Warner needed to walk in San Fernando twice, and Mr. Griffith had to do it 3 or 4 times.
Still, a significantly lower voter turnout shows a void of young electors, which both parties failed to attract.
There's a complete disinterest. They are uninterested. They are unimpressed, I should say, by what was given to them and posited on the stage of both political parties. And that brings me to think that, I'm not surprised. People are fed up. People are going to continue to be fed up. They are going to say that, unless something gives and there's a change, they're not going to cast their vote.
According to the Elections and Boundaries Commission, just over 30% of eligible voters turned out on Monday. That means close to 70% chose not to present themselves at polling stations.
They did not buy into the concept of reform because it was treated like a general election. And as I said last night, I would say to you today that local government should give young people, give candidates the opportunity to show their skills, to demonstrate their competencies, their ability to speak.
Preliminary results show that while the municipality 7-7 deadlock remains, the PNM lost electoral districts, moving from 73 in 2019 to 70, while the UNC gained, moving from 68 to 71.
Whilst there has been decreases in seats won by the PNM and increases by the UNC, what it has given us as compared to 2019 is an absolute stalemate, which means therefore the deadlock is not even broken, it is even tightened.
The political analyst says he was surprised that Gary Griffith's NTA did not have a more significant impact manifested in the capturing of electoral districts. Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pear is full of praise for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force for what he says is a decline in criminal activity on the island, especially violent gun crime. The Prime Minister is attributing this apparent lull to the sustained efforts of police over the last several weeks. The lawmen have also reported the confiscation of dozens of firearms during that time. Jason Darius of the DBS News World reports.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pear asserts that while efforts to curtail St. Lucia's crime situation are proving effective, there remains room for improvement. The Prime Minister says the de-escalation of gang violence is attributed to the hard work and dedication of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
I'm very happy where it's leading. The trend has gone down, and then we hope we can continue on that trend. And the men and women of the police have been doing a pretty good job in what it's been so far. And I'm very happy. I congratulate them on that. I will not be happy until there's zero. Only until zero. I congratulated the police for the work they've been doing. The men and women in the police force, the way they've been doing. But I want it to be zero.
The Prime Minister notes that what is needed right now is more conflict resolution, as there remain issues of conflict and domestic violence on the island, which sometimes sadly end in death.
Although I understand that there have been 3 disputes that have ended up in homicides. 3 disputes, domestic disputes, people fighting each other, so it's not gang warfare.
Pierre urges the police force to keep up the good work and for every citizen to be their brother's keeper. For the DBS News World, Jason Darius reporting.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In a HGP Nightly News report by Darcia Richards, Guyana's Police Complaints Authority, the PCA, is again issuing a stern warning to police officers regarding ongoing constitutional violations. The PCA is particularly concerned about instances of improper arrests and detentions of individuals for non-arrestable offences and illegal stop-and-search activities. These recurring issues raise serious concerns about protecting citizens' rights and adequately enforcing the law. The PCA urges law enforcement to adhere strictly to legal protocols and ensure citizens' constitutional rights are always protected.
In his most recent report, Chairman of the Police Complaints Authority, retired Judge William Ramlal, noted that over 300 police ranks he interviewed in 2022 had little knowledge of the Guyana Police Force's standing orders or the constitutional laws which they use on a daily basis. According to him, it was discovered that a significant portion of police ranks under investigation by the PCA blatantly violated the Constitution while performing their duties. He made it clear that it is against the law to detain and arrest members of the public for offenses that were not punishable by arrest, as well as based on illegal stops and searches, and these illegalities can attract lawsuits. Justice Ramlal therefore recommended that the police force retain competent lawyers to train its hundreds of members. Between January 1st and December 31st, 2022, the PCA received 194 complaints. Of those, 36 were rejected, 52 were closed after initial investigations, and 3 were sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Police Commissioner, respectively. There are a total of 106 open complaints. The Police Complaints Authority is an independent body that investigates complaints from the general public about police misconduct and handles any criminal offenses that police ranks are accused of committing. For AGP Nightly News, I am Dacia Richards.
Venezuela opens investigations into death threats on certain opposition presidential candidates. CDB approves $750,000 in grant to coordinate regional emergency responses. A meth lab detected and dismantled in Trinidad. These stories form part of HGP's regional roundup with Paul Moore.
Venezuela's top prosecutor launched an investigation into death threats against a presidential candidate as fears of political violence in the region have risen following last week's assassination in Ecuador. Attorney General Tariq Sahab wrote in a post on social media that human rights prosecutors have been assigned to investigate threats against Delso Solorzano, a presidential hopeful competing in an opposition primary. In October, the opposition primary aims to pick a standard bearer to face off against President Nicolas Maduro's ruling socialists in next year's general election. Solorzano, the head of the Citizen Encounter Party, said on Saturday that insult-laden death threats were sent to her via Facebook account, and on X, she posted a screenshot that appeared to show a message attributed to Colombia's National Liberation Army, ELN rebel group, threatening to kill her. Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, borrowing member countries, BMCs, will soon be able to prepare for response more effectively to emergency situations following approval of a US $750,000 grant to support the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, in coordinating emergency assistance. CDB's support will strengthen SEDEMA's capacity to supplement national emergency response operations when a country experiences a hazard event. Initiatives to be undertaken involve training of emergency response personnel, including social and gender experts, to work with national teams. SEDEMA will also facilitate greater technical support for national disaster management entities through development of country work programs. The assistance is timely, particularly in light of the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, published in 2022, which indicated that small island states are increasingly likely to be affected by the most intense tropical cyclones, storm surges, droughts, and changing precipitation patterns. The first methamphetamine laboratory in Trinidad and Tobago was located and dismantled by officers of the Special Branch following an extensive intelligence-led operation in partnership with the U.S. law enforcement agencies. Police say a search warrant executed at the residences South Park, San Fernando, by Special Branch officers around 6 a.m. on Thursday resulted in the discovery of components assembled in the form of a clandestine laboratory. Police say officers also discovered a quantity of cash, precursor chemicals, and packets of crystals of various sizes resembling that of methamphetamine. One national of China was arrested in connection with the laboratory and the drugs seized. And that's it for the regional news.
We close today's edition of Caribbean Perspective with Antiguans and Barbudans not yet needing electronic travel authorization to travel to the UK. More in this ABS News item with Ursel Charles.
The update came from Britain's High Commissioner to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Scott Fersidon Wood, as he said during a recent official visit to Prime Minister the Honourable Gaston Browne. The diplomat assured Prime Minister Browne that the global implementation of the UK's electronic travel authorization system has not yet started. He says this will start in October, with Antigua-Barbuda set for a date in 2024, yet to be confirmed. Resident British Commissioner Lindsay Thompson reassured Prime Minister Browne the High Commission will give advance notice of the rollout date. An ETA is a digital permission to travel to the United Kingdom. The scheme will eventually apply broadly to all visitors who do not need a visa for short stays to the UK and don't have any other UK immigration status prior to their travel. Meanwhile, the High Commissioner also congratulated the leader of the Twin Islands state on the recent completion of the world's toughest row Pacific edition by Team Antigua Island Girls and the historic Virgin Galactic space flight by mother-daughter duo Keisha Shahaf and Anastasia Meyers.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.